Hi, welcome back for another conversation of Money Not Math. If you've been watching any of my previous videos, you're probably getting used to seeing this guy, Tate Sorvig, who was nice enough to come into the office today. So just to be clear, we're both healthy. I was screened just 2 days ago, and I know Tate's healthy. So we're trying to do our best there. But kind of flipping the script today, I'll let Tate kind of describe a little bit of his mindset there. But the conversation for Money Not Math today, we're flipping the script a little bit because after our last conversation, Tate actually reached out to me and asked if he could interview me. Is that fair, or kind of ask me questions? I guess I'll let you kind of explain a little bit more of that, or what your thought process is there.
Sure. Well, I was just, I really enjoyed our conversations the last time. I thought we worked well together there, and I thought that, I really appreciated having the opportunity to talk about what I do and the principles and the concepts that I use to help people. And I was curious about what that looks like for you. I've never visited with a financial planner before. I've never done any of that stuff. And so on one hand, I'm curious. And the other, I think it'll be very beneficial for people out there to kind of see the basics of how it works.
Okay.
So
Absolutely.
I thought that would be kind of a cool conversation to have.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, if you have any interest at all in increasing your emotional, physical, or mental happiness, or just health, I strongly encourage checking out Tate's stuff and the Money Not Math conversations we had together. Not only do we have some interesting conversations, but I found it extremely applicable for me. It challenged me to really think through how I'm living my life. So I definitely encourage you to check those out. I don't remember the exact Money Not Math portions they were. I'll list the number. But as far as today goes, I think it's interesting. You're getting kind of I'm not going to go into extreme detail on like the nitty gritty of what I will do for a specific client, because I don't think that's fair to anyone who watches for us to talk about product, because not one product is right for all situations. So why just throw it at every situation is the way I think about things. But I do appreciate you being interested in having this conversation, because like you said, we've never had this conversation. So there's zero scripting involved. There might be some awkward and interesting points that come up, but it should be good. So I'll kind of let you take it away. I'm usually the one asking questions, but I'll let you kind of take it wherever you want to go with that, and I'll do my best to answer in a reasonable way without talking your ear off.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's just start with the basics. So if you were going to say what you do, and if you're going to tell a third grader what you do,
wow,
what would you say to that third grader? How would you describe that?
That is it's an interesting and funny challenge, because I have coached squirt A hockey for 4 years, and they're 9, 10-year-olds, 4th, 5th graders. So I have this trouble with this often. I would say in a very simplistic way that if you're asking what I do, I help people grow and protect their wealth or their money while planning for retirement. Now, what's that mean to a third grader? I'm not really sure, but I can tell you what it ended up being is they just say, I make people rich. And Drew, did you make anyone rich today? So it kind of goes over their head to a point. I obviously didn't explain it that well to them, but that's what I try to tell people as far as what I do, but more importantly, why I do it. We just read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why together. And I think way too often in our world, especially in my industry, but in all industries, we are so focused on what we do. It's like we invest in the market or we grow money and things like that. But really what's more important is why we do it. And for me, stepping all the way back as to why I'm in this business. So I'm kind of going on a tirade here. But
that's my next question.
So kind of starting before. Okay. So since you're going to get into that, I won't go into why I got in this business yet. I'll just say why I do what I do in this business first. I love our country. I really do. But I believe our government is terrible at managing money. All right. So I don't think our government or any financial institution should be in control of our financial future. I believe we should have more control of our money while losing less to taxes unnecessarily. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying we shouldn't pay any taxes. I'm saying we shouldn't lose money unnecessarily to taxes. And unfortunately, the tax code is like 1,000 pages, and there's 2 ways to look at it. One way is how to pay taxes, and one way is how not to. And it's really up to people to decide which side of the book they want to be on.
Right.
And neither one's right or wrong. It's written in a specific way. Unfortunately, they just don't market the way not to pay very well, intentionally, I believe. So everything I do is to help my clients grow and protect their wealth while planning for retirement and losing less to taxes unnecessarily, right? So
you make people rich.
according to my squirts, that is what I do. I make people rich, which is not technically true, or it's not really true, because what does rich mean, right?
Sure.
What does being rich mean?
Well, I mean, straight up, if you look at the dictionary definition, you got a lot of money.
But how much is a lot, right? And we don't have to go down that rabbit hole too far, but our society has been sold this preconceived notion that the only way to be successful is to be rich.
Right.
And I don't think that's true. I think money is a tool, not the only one, a tool to be happy.
Yes.
But there's no like set point that we have to have this much money to be happy. In fact, if you look at like depression numbers, really, really rich people and celebrities and like celebrities' kids actually have higher depression rates than those who in the middle class, if I'm not mistaken. I could be, I'm sorry if I'm wrong there, but that's my understanding of the statistics.
I feel like I read Malcolm Gladwell did a book on that. Can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's like your happiness takes a big spike once you hit like that $75,000-$80,000 mark, and then after, I think it was like 250 or something, the marginal increase in happiness backs off.
Exactly.
Big time.
Right, and that it brings me back to one of my favorite quotes of, there's nothing wrong with trying to build a bigger house, or it's actually build a bigger barn,
right,
as long as the building of a bigger barn doesn't become more important than the family you're going to put into it. Right. So so our society has done a great job of selling the idea that the benchmark is money, and it's not.
Or the yacht.
Yeah, which is not, and even though it's ironic because my tagline is money, not math. But really, what I'm trying to help people do is have the financial freedom around their money to live the lifestyle they want to live.
Right.
It's not a set number of income. It's not a set number of wealth. It's not a set number of income. It's how do we unlock the anchors and provide the freedom so that you can live the way you want to live by understanding how money works.
Right.
So extremely long answer to your original question. That's not the conversation I would have with a third grader. I kind of advanced it to an adult because I've already accepted I'm not great at explaining it to a third grader.
You don't work with third graders on a daily basis anyway, as far as this goes. So
our country doesn't actually allow third graders to manage their money. So, well, legally from a tax standpoint, but it's not getting involved.
All right, cool, excellent. So what was it exactly that brought you here now to do this job? Why did you choose this as your profession?
Yeah, so kind of I'll try to be descriptive without being long-winded, which is a challenge for me at times. In college, I knew a few things about myself. I knew I wanted to work with people. I knew I loved economics. That's what I studied. And I really didn't, and I knew that I wanted to have, I looked up to my brother-in-law and I believe my sister too, they had internships going into their senior year so that when they graduated, they didn't have the stress of, oh crap, what do I do now? Right? There's so many kids graduating from college this year, and every year that are like, they got this degree, now what do I do with it?
Right.
And now they got 6 months to a year where they don't know what to do. So I wanted to have a path. So I just started applying, and I got offered I got an offered internship with 5 or 6 companies in the financial planning area. I was like, okay, maybe that's a sign. Maybe they're telling me what maybe the direction I should go. The first company I worked with was Foster Klima & Company, and that's actually how that's how actually I moved home. I lived in the cities for 5 years, and I came back home because they gave me the opportunity to open my own office here, which I appreciated, and I loved working with them. They're a great company. No ill will towards Foster Klima. I just got to a point where I really wasn't happy with the direction that my business was going. Long story short, I feel like I was trying to do everything for everyone. And as a one-man shop, we have a team behind us, but as a one-man shop, it's a really stressful way to live. So the analogy I use is, Pizza Hut, if you're going to buy pizza, they want you to go there. But they aren't trying to sell you Subway subs, right? So that's where I feel like I was trying to sell everything to everyone. And I feel like that's the trap many people in my industry get into, is they try to do everything for everyone. And we can't be experts at everything. So I took a step back and I tried to figure out what is it that I believe about planning. And fortunately, my mentor was with Solid Rock Financial, and their beliefs and my beliefs just connected perfectly. And that all comes back to, for me, like I said, I love our country, but I don't believe our country, our government, or the stock market, or our financial institutions should be in control of our financial future. I believe we should be. Now we can use their tools, but they shouldn't be in control, is the way I look at it. So that's really how I got to start our financial group, is that it affords me the opportunity to live in my hometown. My wife and I live within 2 blocks and 1.5 miles of both of our parents and her sister and her kids. I get to be involved in this community, as well as do something that I love, helping people live better, hopefully advance and live better or happier lives, I should say. So I think I answered the question. Oh, no. So as far as why I got into it, when I first fell into it, I had no idea why I wanted to do this business until I realized, not to be negative here, but a lot of people think, so that one of the biggest things that upsets me is what they call group plans. All right. Group health plans, group disability plans, group retirement plans.
Yep.
You see, I'm doing this a lot because they aren't plans, they're products. All right. So I always use golf analogies, as you've seen sometimes, but if you worked at a golf course and they said, hey, for working here, you automatically get to have 1 free driver. Is that a plan? No, it's a club. So many people show up to their work every day and they have their 60% group disability, they have their 1x income life insurance, and they have their 3% 401k match. And those are all good because they're free. Those are good things. But they have this false sense of security that they're safe. Nope, I got my group plan, I'm fine. And it saddens me to see that because it's not their fault. No one's sitting them down and actually showing them how they work, right? HR professionals are great, but their job, from my understanding, is more to manage people and actually explain, this is what happens if you actually need to use this.
Right. All
right. So for me, my aunt, and I'm not going to get these years right, but my aunt back in 2010-ish, I believe, 2007-ish, somewhere in there, my aunt worked for the University of Minnesota, and she had group disability, she had group life insurance, and she got multiple sclerosis, or diagnosed with it. And unfortunately, from my understanding, I don't know their exact financial, but from my perspective, they didn't have the funds to pay for in-home assisted living in-home care or assisted living. So while I was living, I got to go to school, I got to do extracurricular activities, my uncle had to work more, and my cousins had to go home and help take care of their mom after school. Because that's the group disability you get. It's there, but it's not perfect. And fast forward about 10 years, she passes away, and a couple months later, my uncle gets diagnosed with multiple myeloma. And that's a terminal cancer that attacks your white blood cells. Thankfully, he's still here today. And I hope my family doesn't mind me sharing that story. But it just showed me how important protection is, right? My industry, it's not a sexy conversation to talk about protection. It's not. It's a lot of times people just will call life insurance agents or disability insurance agents, I don't even know what they call them necessarily, but they get a bad rap.
Sure.
But it's not sexy to talk about protection, but it just showed me how important that conversation is, because so many people like my aunt had their group benefits and they just thought they were safe because they have this stuff, but they never really understood how it worked. So my goal is never to tell someone what they should do, but just to educate them on what they have and what their options are. And if you want to make a decision, great. So that's the protection side. That's what really got me passionate about this industry back with Foster Klima. And then the more and more I learned, I also got more passionate on the offensive side. I split everything offensively and defensively when it comes to, like I said, the growing and protecting of wealth, growing and protecting, not just growing, when planning for retirement. So long story short, studied economics, understood protection is important, joined Solid Rock Financial Group because their beliefs more aligned with my beliefs, and I created a more specific business strategy rather than trying to do everything for everyone. So did I answer your question? I might have failed the long-winded part, but I tried my best.
That was excellent. So it wasn't something where you were 8 years old and you were walking around interviewing people trying to help them plan their stuff out. It just, you started learning about money and you kind of fell into a a line that lined up with your values, and it gave you an opportunity to help people.
Absolutely.
Along those lines. That's awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I going to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew I loved Gopher sports.
Well, that's something to start with, and if that helps helps you build a solid strategy,
yeah,
by having a sports mind, then there you go. That plays. It's kind of funny. You talk about like protection is not a sexy conversation, but it's absolutely important. If you don't have that protection, you're opening yourself up. There's a lot of corollaries to what I do. It's the same sort of thing. Posture is not sexy to talk about, but it's so important.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting how, like, I fell into what I'm doing. A lot of similar situations. You see what happens on the backside, and it kind of inspires you to want to do something about it.
Right.
So that's cool.
And just to add one more sports analogy, I challenge anyone who watches this or conversates with me to name a single sports team that was great with just an offense. And what I mean by that is my industry, it's so easy to sell the offensive side, the stock market, 401ks, like mutual funds. That's easy stuff. People get allured by the marketing of growing your money. But if we don't have a defensive protection plan in addition to that, do we really have a plan? Or do we just have tools? Right? There's a difference between having tools and having a plan. And I'm not trying to bash anyone for one or the other. I just really hope that I can bring to light the importance of having both, or at least having a discussion.
So it's not just that you're making people rich, it's helping them stay rich. It's helping them stay rich. That's where the protection comes in.
Sure. In the eyes of the squirts, yes, I guess you could say that.
Well, it's not just what you make, it's what you keep, right?
Exactly.
That's important. Okay, cool. So I guess the next place I want to go, we've heard a little bit about the origins coming up and kind of the basics of what you do. What does it look like? Say I come in and I'm like, Drew, I don't know what I'm doing with money, and I want to make sure that I have some later. Where do we start having that conversation? I know it's going to matter. It's probably going to make a difference who's coming in, what the situation is. You got to find out what that is. But what are the key things that you want to find out, and how does that fall into a strategy as far as kind of starting to build that strategy for your clients?
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's a good question, and it actually reflects on the number one most important lesson I've learned in the 6 years I've been in this business. I had my 6-year, I guess, anniversary of getting my licenses a couple of months ago, or a couple of weeks ago. Thanks. Yeah, it just popped up in my Time Hop app, so that's the reason why I knew. Funny story, I'll tell you later. But anyways, the biggest thing that I've learned is it doesn't matter how much money someone has that walks through that door. What matters is, do they believe what I believe? And it's not that they're wrong or I'm wrong or they're right or that I'm right. But if we don't believe the same things, the relationship isn't going to work. Sure. We're going to battle each other the whole way. So at the beginning of every conversation, I've had people walk in with packets, lay them on my desk and say, here's my insurance, here's my investments, what should I do? And I always stop them and I say, I appreciate that you're this prepared, because many people aren't. But what the first and most important thing is we need to decide is, do we believe the same things? So are we even compatible to work together? Because so at the end of the first conversation, Tate, we're going to find one of three things. One, you're a great guy. I'm hopefully a decent guy, but we don't believe the same things, and that's okay. There's someone else in this. I can introduce you to someone else that you should maybe work with, or there's other people in this town that maybe you should work with, and that's okay. Let's hopefully be friends. Two, we believe the same things, but maybe now is not the right time, and that's okay too. Let's stay in contact and schedule a follow-up conversation. And there's a plethora of reasons why maybe it's not the right time. Life happens, COVID happens, right? So things like that. So, or three, we find that we believe the same things. Great, let's have the conversation, and we'll schedule a follow-up one if it makes sense. So that's really the beginning of all conversations, and then it's figuring out, do we believe the same things? All right, so I know we were trying to figure out lighting and how this is all going to work. So a little background for anyone wondering, my area of expertise is not technology, all right? My number one belief in life, that's not true, but I say it the most. The smarter technology, the dumber the problems. But, so I'm going to give you a little introduction as to how I determine if I believe, or if people who walk into my office believe what I believe. And if you don't, that's okay. All right? So I've never asked these questions, right?
Never.
All right. So if I'm going to draw this circle, all right? And what this circle represents, Tate, you're young, right? You're young and healthy. You have a long life ahead of you.
Thanks.
It's not really a circle. It's more of an egg. But hey, I'm not Mr. Ferland. I can't
love
draw
eggs.
perfect circles. If this circle represents all of the wealth that you're one day going to retire with, all right? And it's hard to imagine because we're young, but just all the wealth you're going to one day retire with, whether it's your retirement accounts, your house, your land, your animals, right? I'm kidding about the animals, but everything that you could one day sell to live off of fits in this circle. And I'm going to call it a retirement pie because it makes the analogy easier, all right? If I drew the first line into your retirement pie right there, all right, I made the first slice. Then I asked you, Tate, take the marker. And will you please draw the second slice into your retirement pie that signifies the amount of your retirement wealth you want to share with the IRS? Where would you draw that slice?
Well, I guess maybe like right around there-ish.
So that's how much you want to share.
That's a good point. Maybe we'll just stay right on that line.
All right. So if I read you correctly,
As little as possible.
you wrote what you thought.
Piece possible.
Okay, the smallest piece possible. So we'll just put a star down here to signify that. And why is that? Why do you want to share as little of your money as possible with the IRS in retirement?
Because I want to have as much as I want to keep it for what I want to do with my retirement. And I don't necessarily think that giving it to them is going to help me out that much.
Okay, so you want to keep control of your money and not have other people tell you what to do with it. Is that what you just said?
That sounds good.
All right, so I appreciate that. Because of traditional planning strategies, the average person retiring today ends up having to give up 30 to 40% of their retirement wealth to the IRS.
Ish.
So when you think about that, so you just imagine everything you have today, and you fast forward however many years till you retire. Imagine waking up the day after you retire and realizing 30 to 40% of what you thought you had isn't actually yours.
I wouldn't be very happy about that, Drew.
Be a little upsetting?
I'd be a little disgruntled.
Me too, right? So when you think about the fact, and I'm not going to pull out a bunch of stuff, but when you think about the fact that we're currently like almost $26 trillion in debt, our debt's only getting higher. We're at one of the lowest tax rates in the history of our country since like 1920. Do you think it's more likely the IRS, if they get their choice, decrease or increase the amount of your wealth they want to take?
I think they'll probably want to take as much as they can.
So you think they're going to try to increase it?
I would guess so.
So you just told me 30 to 40% you'd be disgruntled. What if you found out it's more like 60%? How would that make you feel?
I would maybe even get agitated at that point.
I don't know where Tate's levels of anger, disgruntled and agitated are, but it sounds bad, right? So what my goal is, so we believe, it sounds like we agree. So what my goal is with working with my clients is to help them get this bar as close to the zero line as possible, or at least where they told me, right? We may not ever be perfect because I don't know where you currently have your money, but the point is that's my goal. My goal is to get you from there to there. How does that sound to you?
That sounds great.
All right, so that's step one of us being on the same page, all right? Step two, my drawings are phenomenal, I know, but if anyone, I wonder if people can even read this, but hey, that's okay.
Oh yeah, I think they get.
So the second part is, and anyone, I'd be interested to see people who worked with me over the years, how much this is adjusted or if it's the exact same, but my second analogy is a retirement mountain. All right, so it looks like a witch's hat, but what it actually is Mount Everest. All right, so this is our retirement mountain. All right, if you and I were crazy enough to actually be down here, packing up and getting prepared to climb Mount Everest, granted, I'm not in close enough, good enough shape, maybe you are, but if you and I were crazy enough to try, what do you think our goal would be?
Not only to make it to the top, but to get back down.
Good. I like that answer. To get to the top, plant our flag, and get back down, right? Climb up and enjoy the trip. So the funny thing about that is a lot of people that I ask that question, they say get to the top. You didn't say that, so I'm not going to go down that tirade, but the interesting thing about it is the retirement mountain reflects perfectly to our financial lives. And what I mean by that is the retirement, on the upside of a mountain, we have the ascension, right? We have to climb up it. Top of the mountain, and then we have the descent. And did you know that the majority of people who pass away on Mount Everest pass away on the way down, not the way up?
I did not know that.
So I'm not a professional mountain climber, as you can tell, but I don't know exactly why, but my assumption is that they run out of resources. They had poor planning because the planning up is different than the planning down, things like that, right? And that's the key, is the planning up is different than planning down. When you relate this to our financial lives, we'll say 4 stages. We have our accumulation stage, we have our retirement, which, can we agree, retirement looks differently for everyone. For some people, they want to completely retire. For some people, they just want the choice to retire. Some people, they just want to slow down. And everyone's retirement goals are different. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
So it's just conceptual. On the way down the mountain, we have our distribution phase. This is where we now have to, on the way up, we accumulate our wealth, right? We work really hard to create income to support our lifestyles today, and hopefully set aside enough money to accumulate wealth for the future, so we don't have to work forever. And then we retire or get close to it, and then we have to use the money we've accumulated, and we have to distribute it to create income. Do you agree?
Yep.
And the last phase that we talk about at times is what I call legacy. So I know my handwriting is god-awful there, but hey, we'll get over it. So that says legacy, even though it looks like gibberish from a 3rd grader. Actually, 3rd graders might have better handwriting than me. I don't know.
They work on it a lot more,
Probably. The last stage is legacy. And that's where you have to ask yourself, is it important to you to leave money to your loved ones once you're gone? If the answer is yes, we have to have a strategy for that. It doesn't just happen. Mm-hmm. If the answer is yes, we have to have a strategy that understands how taxes work, estate taxes work, how wills work, right? So I don't do wills and estate planning, but they're so important. I encourage everyone who walks in through my door to do it. Because I think we've all seen what happens to family when money gets involved. It's not pretty a lot of the time. All right, so going back to the story. So when you look at a financial planning industry, when you think about almost all the commercials you've ever seen, all the conversations you ever hear, all the marketing that's ever done, it's almost always on accumulation, rate of return. What's the stock market doing today? Right? It's almost always on that, right? And you even see commercials where it's like, you start here and you get to the mountain and you won. Congratulations, you've won. But what did you tell me about Mount Everest? It's not about just getting to the top.
You got to get back down.
You got to get back down and hopefully enjoy the trip, right?
You can't stay there.
Right? And because of this style of planning is why so many people 5, 6, 7 years into retirement have to completely readjust or go back to work because they never had a strategy to get down. Right? And going back to my 401k example, it's all about accumulating wealth. They're not actually teaching you how to spend it in retirement. That's why I hate that it's called a plan. It's a tool, okay? So my point is, do you know why almost all the conversations are on this side of the mountain?
Because that's what most people are focused on doing when they come to talk to you, probably?
Yes, but it's marketing. Because this is where financial professionals get paid.
Sure.
Right? You use your 401k advisor, you use me even, you use your investment advisor, I won't drop names. They get paid as you put money in, and as they maintain your assets. When you start distributing your assets, their income goes down.
Sure. So
does it make sense? Why do they market that side, not that side?
Yeah.
Right?
And that's the dream, too. If people are measuring their riches or measuring their wealth by money, and you say, this is how you get all that money, you can see why that would be a powerful marketing message.
Exactly.
Tool.
Exactly. It's a sexy conversation, right?
For sure.
But what we have to ask ourselves is, all right, so you're a business owner, so the conversation's a little bit different, right? So your business name is...
CrossFit Great North.
I was going to say Great North CrossFit.
Everybody
CrossFit Great North. All right. So in your opinion, what's more important? how much money CrossFit Great North says it's worth, or how much it pays you and your family?
How much it pays me and my family.
And why is that?
Well, because you talk about business, there's a lot of things coming in and out. And just because you have that top end revenue, if your expenses come right up there, you don't really have anything left. So it's what you get to take home that really matters.
Right. And what you can spend is what you live off of, right?
Yeah.
So to put that in numbers, if you had a choice between plan A, that said you'd have $7 million at the top of the mountain, and plan B, that said you'd have $3 million at the top of the mountain, which one would you choose?
Just off that information, I'd want the $7 million at the top of the mountain.
Exactly. With no further context, obviously you want plan A. And that's the problem, is if the story stops there, that's all we're thinking about is how do we get as much money accumulated as fast as possible for retirement?
Sure.
But if we finish that story and we say, okay, the $7 million is going to pay you $210,000 per year of taxable income, and the $3 million is going to pay you, these are all hypothetical numbers, just so we're clear, I'm just setting a point,
right?
Is going to pay you $180,000 per year of tax-free income. Which one are you going to choose?
I'm going to go with tax-free, I'm thinking.
And why is that?
Because if the tax changes and they take more, you're going to wind up with a lot less. So that makes it a much more predictable level, and you don't have to accumulate as much.
Right. And plus, so you said multiple things there, but one, if you're at a 30% tax rate, that's $70,000. Your net income is $140,000.
Right.
If you're at a 60% tax rate, that's $140,000. Your net income is $70,000. Woohoo! Or, I didn't do the math perfect, but woohoo!
Right.
I don't think. Anyways, point is, so you said the first thing was more, it's more, right? Net, the cash flow is more. And two, you said you don't have to accumulate as much. Do you think it's more likely you'll accumulate $3 million or $7 million over your lifetime?
Well, I would guess that it's a lot easier to make $3 million than $7 million.
Right. So the whole point is, going back to my question, what's more important? How much money our statement says we have, or how much we get paid?
How much we get to keep.
So in your opinion, what is more important? For us to focus on maximizing our rate of return or maximizing our rate of distribution?
Rate of distribution.
So everything I do, I have an understanding that this side of the mountain is important, but this side of the mountain is more important.
Right.
What questions or thoughts do you have on that?
Makes perfect sense.
Do you agree or disagree with that logic?
I agree 100%.
So to answer your question, this would be the time of the conversation. I would say, Tate, it sounds like we believe the same things. Let's continue our conversation and start gathering more information about you. And that's where I would start asking you more personal questions about what it is you're trying to achieve, where you're trying to go, what your goals are, and things like that we don't have to outline for our audience. But hopefully that answers the question that you asked.
100%. Well, that's a very valuable conversation. Okay. Yeah.
The wheel's just turning right now.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to frame my next kind of question.
Okay.
So then going off of this, obviously everybody who comes through doors and have a different situation, like you say. But let's say, well, first, all the people that you work with, what are some common denominators? Like when people come to you, should they already have money? Can they not have money? Should they be nearing retirement? Could they be far from retirement? Where do you wind up getting the most people, and who could possibly benefit as far as like what that situation looks like? Who could benefit the most besides just being young?
Yeah, great question. That's almost impossible for me to answer well.
Sure.
I'll do my best though. So who can benefit? Anyone. Mm-hmm. I mean that. So my oldest client is probably in the 70s. My youngest client is 19 years old. Mm-hmm. All right. And from a logistical standpoint, I'd say half my clients live in the Theodore Falls area. Half of them we do just Zoom meetings. I have clients in California. All right. Sure. So from an underlying standpoint, I wouldn't say there is one. outside of we believe the same things,
Right.
and they're motivated about being financially successful. All right, because if there's the second biggest lesson I ever learned behind that we need to believe the same things, the second biggest lesson I learned in this industry or in my business career is I cannot care more about your future than you do. If I'm spending all of my time trying to convince you why you should care,
Right.
that relationship's not going to work.
Right.
As much as I want to help everyone and anyone, like I literally don't care if you have $1 to your name or $1 million to your name, I want to help if I can.
Right.
But if you don't care, there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that relates to your world too, is like you could give all the
100%.
statistics in the world and all the exercises in the world. If someone just doesn't care, it doesn't matter, right?
100%.
So that's the biggest thing is the two things that have to be there. They have to care about, they have to believe what I believe, and they have to be motivated to be financially successful and actually take action. All right. There's a lot of people that like to take in information, but not take action.
Right.
And information is, some people say information is power. I disagree. Information used for action is power. So those are the two things that have to be there. As far as other things I see, I find a lot of business owners, because they understand they look at their money a little bit differently than employees do. Even though I challenge employees to look at their money like business owners. The example I'll use, we live in Thief River Falls, Minnesota. Everyone knows what DigiKey is. I think I've used this with you before, but it's still worth repeating. If DigiKey, so I'm actually going to draw this.
Sure.
So if this was DigiKey's, let's say, slush fund. So I don't know what DigiKey's gross income last year was. Well, let's just say this is DigiKey's slush fund. Oh, DigiKey. And they had all their different departments just pulling from the same slush fund. All right, there's no budget involved. They're just pulling until it's empty. How efficient do you think DigiKey would be?
That they'd be pretty efficient at emptying the slush.
Yes, right. But like as a business, that's not an efficient. You can't run a business that way, right?
No.
This department needs more money than this one. That department might need different types of money or quarterly, monthly, things like that, right?
Right.
The problem is, as a business owner, we get that. But from a personal standpoint, and the funny thing is many business owners are great with their business money, but not great with their personal money, right? Or they use their business money for their personal expenses. All right. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, so please don't act like I'm preaching to anyone, because I've made mistakes. I still make mistakes. But if we just think about this as a family, it's the same thing.
Yep.
Unfortunately, so many people, and I don't get paid to make budgets, but I help people with their budgets all the time because it's efficient for planning. If so many families have one checking account and everything comes out of it, and at the end of the month, they are just stressed. It's like, oh, I hope I make it through the month. They know they got income coming. They know they make good money. I've had people that make $250,000 a year walk in here almost broke because they just spend, they don't save, right? So the whole thing is, how do we separate and allocate our funds? All right. So I don't remember how I got into that, but hopefully the analogy is helpful. So
Definitely.
So the things that I see is, so I already said, motivated, believe what I believe. Business owners oftentimes think about their money a little differently, but I have a majority, because there's more employees than there are business owners. A majority of my clients are employees of businesses, but they're just really motivated to learn.
Sure.
And because of the nature of the work that I do, it's not mainstream. It's not the same as the traditional planning, as I hopefully illustrated. It has to take a bit of open-mindedness to either learn new things or be different than your friends. All right, because I believe one of the most frustrating things that our society does is tell you to keep up with the Joneses. All right, so I've had so many conversations where people will be like, well, my parents do. Sure. Well, my friends do. And I don't want to be confrontational, but it's, okay, do you want the exact same life your parents had? Does money work the exact same way as it did for your parents 30 years ago? Do you want the exact same life, and do you believe the exact same things your friends do? Right. And the answer to those are almost never yes, but we get so pressured to do the exact same things as other people are doing. Right. Like, even if, like, we have a conversation, you believe everything I said, but then you go home and you ask 10 of your friends, well, what are you doing? And none of them are doing it. Nah, I don't want to do that, Drew. My friends aren't doing it. Like, that's got to be that. So I don't know if I'm really hopefully I'm answering your question a little bit, but there's not really like a set group of people that I work with. It's really just an underlying belief and value.
Right.
Of, I guess the fourth one I'll mention. So to start from the top, they have to believe what I believe. They have to be motivated to learn. They have to be open-minded and not care about being the same as everyone else, because I don't do the same as everyone else. And the fourth thing is they have to be genuinely good people. Like for me, family will always be my number one value. And if you're just a jerk, I'm probably not going to want to work with you. And I found that people who genuinely care about their families are not only are happier, but they're also more motivated to have follow-up conversations.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to alienate anyone, but that's just kind of the way I feel.
Yeah, man. I like that a lot. I might have to steal some of that for my own
Go for
intro
it.
stuff. No,
Yeah, for sure.
That's a really nice way to shake it out. All right. So somebody walks in.
Mm-hmm.
You walk through that first conversation. Makes sense to work with them. Then it's to assess what their current situation is. Right?
Yep. It's information gathering. Let's call it. Yeah.
And from that, you build a strategy.
From that, I would do a little bit more. So it's kind of like my beliefs, your information.
Right.
Here's a little bit more of my strategy philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you want to go from here? Because I don't believe my job is to ever tell anyone what to do. I believe my job is to educate you on your best options based off what you've told me, not what my beliefs are, but what you told me. Mm-hmm. My job is to educate you on your options are so you can make decisions. I don't like that my industry tries to tell people what they're supposed to do.
Right.
Because like, I won't use names, but like the books out there that like tell everyone to do the exact same thing. It's like, are we all the same people? When I was growing up, I was told to celebrate my uniqueness, like be okay with being different. And now like we're like trying to be clumping everyone together. Like everyone should do this. Everyone should do this. Everyone should do that. It's like, well, maybe not everyone should do that. So sorry to cut you off the wrong way there, but yes. Do we believe the same things? Gather some information. I'm gonna show you some stuff based off what you told me you wanted to do, so you can make decisions. And then we kind of go through what we'll call like an underwriting process. So whether that's the investment side of things, the insurance side of things like that, we have to see what's available.
Okay. So, like you say, you don't want to get any specific products, but so you just mentioned a few different areas that need to get handled. So for whoever comes in here, what are those areas that you're going to say, we need to make sure that this is handled, this is handled, this is handled to make sure that you're protected, and just kind of put some basic areas that you're not necessarily putting, recommending everybody go down, but recommending that are making sure those bases are covered. What are the bases that need to be covered?
Okay.
Going back to your sports analogy.
Yeah, no, good one. So, so you use the word protection. So we'll do protection. We'll talk about protection first. Because like I said, offense and defense are different. They're both important to work together, but I always separate the conversation. If we just had every conversation in a meeting, it would be like 3 hours long, and your eyes would glaze over 45 minutes in, and I would probably get bored of listening to myself talk. All right. So, and that's hard to do. I love talking. So, so I always, in every meeting, I always try to pick like 1 or 2 items to accomplish. And if there's 3, 4, 5, 6, let's schedule a follow-up, let you digest, come up with questions, and then go from there.
Sure.
I've tried to have the 5-point conversation before, and by the end of the meeting, I think the people were just like, nope. Anyway, so you said, what are the bases to protect ourselves, right? So this is from a personal standpoint, because business, there's kind of another range. Sure. When it comes to like buy-sell agreements, like overhead expenses, things like that. But from a personal standpoint, it really kind of comes down to 5 or so key areas, depending on how you categorize them. So I'll ask you, you're married, you have 2 kids, correct? Mm-hmm. What is like the most permanent life event that could happen that would most dramatically affect your family?
Death of me or any of us.
Death. So we're not going to go down a long list, but how are you protecting yourself and your wealth and your family from the occurrence that you could die?
Specifically?
You don't have to answer it, but that's the question I'm going to ask you. We're going to talk about. All All right?
Right.
So for you, I want you to think about it. For anyone watching, think about that. How are you protecting yourself and your family? What's a less permanent, but almost equally as important event that could happen that could negatively affect your family from a financial standpoint?
Either a illness or injury that would result in loss of work.
Did I spell illness right? Illness?
Yep,
Okay.
got it.
Nice.
Nailed it.
Okay, I won the 5th grade spelling test, our thing in my class, and my spelling, because of autocorrect, has gone down the dumps. Along with my handwriting, as you can see. Illness or injury. So the second question is, how are you protecting? This goes back to my example of my aunt, right? My uncle. My aunt was alive for 10 years. My uncle's still alive. But how are you protecting yourself and your family from the occurrence that could happen that you're sick or hurt and cannot work?
Right.
And no one wants to think of themselves as the one that could happen to. I mean, look how healthy you are, right? But we always think of the guy in the body cast, but the reality of it is that 90% of people who have long-term disabilities, which is about 3 years on average, is from illness.
Yeah.
Whether it's cancer, whether it's multiple sclerosis, whatever it may be, it's not something that you can necessarily, I mean, I guess there's actually an argument to this. You can be healthy to avoid some of them, like obesity obviously enhances your chance of cancer. But anyways, the point is it's not injury related. It's illness related, right?
You can change your risk.
Sure, but it's not, you can never be zero risk.
Right.
Right? So the point is, okay, do you understand how your group benefits work? You're a business owner, you probably don't have any. So what kind of planning have you done outside your group so that in the case that something happens to you, your family can still pay the bills, buy groceries, and not mention pay for you, because not only are you still alive, you still actually cost more money not working.
Right.
Right? So that's the second question. All right? And that can make people uncomfortable at times, but it's an important one to answer. The third one is more of a short-term thing with COVID, but we'll just go with emergency fund.
Sure.
How are you protecting yourself in the case that COVID happens, or you lose your job, or Textron buys an Arctic Cat and lays off a bunch of people, so they have a 3 to 6 month gap. If COVID taught our industry, I'm not trying to be mean in saying this, but if COVID taught our society one thing, it's the amount of people who are so dependent on, who are not independent.
Yeah. Right.
Without the stimulus packages, can you imagine the chaos? Like, people are thinking these like protests are chaos. Imagine the chaos if the $600 a week wasn't going out, if the unemployment wasn't enhanced, if these businesses weren't getting bailed out.
Right.
Because I think it's like 70% of people in our country don't have enough money to cover a $500 unexpected event. Right. So how are you protecting yourself from an emergency standpoint? It's not sexy to have money sitting in your checking account, but do you know the difference between those who lose money when the market corrects and those who gain money? Access to capital. Do you have liquid funds? So that's more the offensive, but it's important to know.
Yeah.
All right. The fourth one is, I don't do this, but it's important: wills, trusts, etc. All right. So I don't do it, but I think it's extremely important, not only from a will standpoint. Who do you want to have? So who do you want to be in control of your money when you're gone?
Right.
The government or your family or you? Right? Do you want to dictate what happens to your money when you're gone? If the answer is yes, get a will.
Right.
You don't have to do it young, because they hold over until your life events happen. Trusts. Do you have significant enough money that you're going to be subject to estate taxes, or if you pass away? So life insurance, for example. I'm not an estate planner. I'm not an estate planner.
He's not an estate planner.
I'm just giving you my information from what I understand. If you leave life insurance death benefit to kids under the age of 18, the government basically designates, I can't think of the correct term, but basically someone to be in charge of that money based off who they feel is suited, which would be your wife if you're both alive. But if something happens to both of you, then they have to determine for you, right? So again, would you rather pick or have them pick for you? By just simply having a revocable trust within your will, you get to designate how much money goes to your kid and when they get it. So I don't know about you, but if I had $1 million given to me at the age of 18, I would have made some bad decisions. So maybe at 25 or like 27, it would have been a better idea. But so just having that, having that control, right? So it all comes back to do you want to designate what happens to your money when you're gone, or do you want the government to? Right. And the fifth one is your property and casualty. Your property and casualty insurance, right? So this is your auto insurance, your home insurance, your boat insurance, stuff like that. I don't do this, but I think it's extremely important when it comes to the big picture of protecting yourself.
Right.
Because so many people don't have underinsured, uninsured insurance, for example. So if you get in a car accident, it's my fault. I don't have insurance. Well, now you're screwed, right? So many people don't have umbrella insurance. So you get in a car accident, you accidentally hit a doctor, they're going to sue you and garnish your wages for the rest of your life because the insurance company just goes, well, here's a check, good luck with the rest. And I can promise you insurance companies can hire better lawyers than you, right? So it's one of those things that so many people have it, but is it efficient, right? And I think there's a lot of great P&C agents out there, but not all of them are selling for quality. They're selling for numbers. It's just, every P&C commercial, Progressive, every commercial is price-based. It's not quality-based.
Right.
And for me, I believe quality is much more important than price. Now, it has to fit in the budget.
Right.
But if you're paying $20 a month for junk, over $40 a month for quality, and something happens, you're probably going to regret that decision.
Yep.
So those are kind of, I talked for a long time there, but those are really the 5 items of protection that I encourage everyone to address. I don't tell you what to do, but if you're open to the conversation, I'm going to bring it up and let you decide what you want to do around it. And there's much more detailed things we go into.
Sure.
This would be a longer conversation.
Absolutely.
Right? So does that answer your question?
Yeah, man, for sure. So then on the attack side, is there a few basic areas similar to that as far as the offense goes?
Yeah. So what are we at for time here?
Oh yeah,
We're at 12:15. All right. So I'm going to do this as quick as I can. It's not going to be as quality as it could be, but hopefully it piques your interest. And if you're interested in learning more, stop on by or give me a call. All right. So there's three, I guess you could say there's three types of people when it comes to how they spend their money. All right. There's spenders. That says spenders because you probably can't read it. All right. There's savers. These are the two most common types of people. All right. This is where about 90% of our society fits. Spenders and savers. All right. So this is what we're going to call our zero-sum line. This is where your net worth is, let's just for example's sake, zero. You might have $100,000 in cash, but $100,000 in debt, net worth zero. Okay. Or $0 cash, $0 debt, net worth zero. That's a whole nother topic of conversation on paying down debt, but
sure.
We're not going to get into amortized risk compounding interest today. So savers. So spenders, we all know these people, all right? When they got their first job out of college or anytime they get a raise, that money burns a hole in their pocket and they got to spend it, right? They don't wait to save up money. They just go buy the car and they pay it off. So let's use a car as an example. So they buy their car and then they, over a 5-year period or so, they pay it off, right? And by the time they've paid off this debt, if not before, they're like, well, I got this debt paid for. I'm going to go get a 4-wheeler or a boat or a nicer car, right?
Right.
Or a truck. They go get another thing and they pay it off, right? They accumulate assets, but they never really have wealth or they don't have money, all right? There's a difference between net worth and like cash flow, like spendable wealth, right? There's a lot of really rich farmers out there on a spreadsheet, but they're cash flow poor and it stresses the heck out of them. And I'm not digging farmers. It's just an easy example.
Sure.
Right? They might have $20 million worth of equipment and land, but they might have $100,000 in the bank account, right? Which might sound like a lot, but from a ratio standpoint, it's not that much. All right. So spenders, they just keep borrowing and paying off, borrowing, paying off, borrowing, paying off, right? Savers, on the other hand, they can't stand debt. They refuse to have it, right? So when they get out of college or they get their new job or they get a raise, they save, and they spend and they buy whatever they're going to buy, the car, all right? They had to wait,
right,
but they didn't have to pay interest. They save, buy something else, right? They're always saving and spending down their account. The end of the picture, where do they both end up from a cash flow standpoint?
Same spot,
right? Which is not perfect, as we know,
sure,
right? It's a hypothetical example. So I've had people get mad at me. They're like, well, the saver's going to have more money because they didn't pay interest. But point is,
sure,
at the end of the day, from a cash flow standpoint, they're pretty much in the same spot. Okay, so when we look at the spender compared to the saver, what cost does the spender have that the saver doesn't?
The interest and
interest
just holding the.
Correct. For these 5 years or so, they have to pay interest. right? Some sort of percentage of interest that's going to cost them money. And they're never going to get that money back. It's gone, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the biggest costs of the spender is the interest they lost. They could have otherwise spent other places. Now, here's the tricky question. What's the biggest cost to the saver?
Time.
Time, can you elaborate on what you mean by that?
Well, the spender gets to get their thing right
away.
From
and
the saver has to wait. So I guess you'd have to spend the time to get the thing.
Okay, so you're 100% right with the word time, but not the way you explain it. Let me show you what I mean. All right, so Albert Einstein said, I believe it said the eighth wonder of the world was compounding interest.
Sure.
All right, so are you familiar with how compounding works?
Yes.
Right? So as we can see, it's pretty boring in the beginning, and then it explodes. All right, and everything in our industry, we understand the power of compounding, but for some reason, traditional planning teaches you how to stop using it. Let me elaborate. For a saver, when they're saving, the second they spend down their account, they lose their compounding.
Sure.
Right? What they could have had is no more.
Right.
They're saving, spending it down. Saving, spending it down. Let me use some real life examples. One of the most common financial tools that's marketed to parents today, 529 plans. You save for 18 years, you're getting little to no compounding interest because you're early in the curve, and we can show you mathematical examples, but we're not going to get into that. And then one day, when your kid wants to go to college, good job, you saved for them, you gave them a huge opportunity that many parents weren't able to afford, but now you're going to spend down your account, which lowers your compounding curve. Who gets to enjoy the compounding of that money? You or the financial institution, aka the college?
Sure.
The college, right? The next one, you save for another one you might save for if you're well off and like to support your kids is their wedding one day. Save. Kids get married, you got to pay it off. You just lowered your compounding curve. That money you can't ever go back in time. The word you said, time, is the only resource we never get back, right? Unless you believe in time travel, which I'm not getting into that. So, right, paying for your kid's wedding, buying new vehicles, going on vacations, unexpected life events. Every time you take money off of a compounding curve, you've now lowered your curve. Because where you start, your maximum point, you can never go back in time. Do we agree?
Yep.
All right, here's the big kicker. From your knowledge of investing in the stock market, when you near retirement, do they tell you to increase or decrease your risk?
Decrease your risk.
You decrease it, right? So just when you're getting close to retirement, and just when your compounding curve is about to take off, they decrease your risk, which decreases your potential for growth. Interesting, isn't it? So as you're getting closer to exploding on your compounding curve, decrease your risk, decrease your growth potential, and now you're down here. Kind of an oxymoron, isn't it?
Interesting.
And I get why they say that, because traditional planning, we have to decrease the risk of losing your money. We're also decreasing the risk or the potential gain of growing your money too.
Sure.
So I'm not recommending a product by just saying a philosophy standpoint, we're lowering our curve. And this is why so many people, when they start their financial plan and think they're going to get up there, they get to be 65 years old and they're down here and they have no idea why. They've done everything right. They save for their kids' college. They save for their kids' wedding. They paid off their house as fast as they could, which I don't believe in that, but hey, we'll have that conversation on another day. They paid off their house as fast as they could. They lowered their risk as they got older, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, but I thought I was supposed to have $10 million, now I have $2 million. Why is that? It's because they didn't use their life compounding curve. They used short-term compounding curves. Right. So the number one loss for a saver and the spender, but that's on top of the interest, is they don't lose their compounding curve. Mm-hmm. All right. Interesting, isn't it? Have you ever thought about money in this way?
I mean, I've thought of it in terms like if you spend all that you have, whether you're going into debt or you're spending what you saved, you're not growing anywhere. I'm assuming that the third one is an investor or something that you would call it, where you're actually making sure that you're not spending everything back to the zero line, or what? How do you? Sorry, I shouldn't jump ahead.
No, that's okay.
That's where we're going.
No, I like where your head's at. That's why I try to ask questions, because I don't ever want to assume I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
All right. So the third type of person is a wealth creator. All right. So I don't want to get into politics, but I'm a firm believer in moral capitalism. I add the word moral because capitalism can be used for bad things too. So I believe in moral capitalism. Capitalism with morality, right?
Yeah.
But the reason why every time there's a market correction, 5 to 10% of our country gets richer and another 90% gets poorer is because 5 to 10% are wealth creators and about another 90% are spenders or savers. All right? Example being, let's say you're a great saver. Let's say you save 20% of your income into your traditional 401k.
Mm-hmm.
The market corrects by 39% like it did in 2008. What are your choices? You can either ride it out, leave it because you know it should rebound, or you can pull it out and therefore cement your losses, right? You can't get that money back once you pull it out of the market. Right? At the same time, so here's the market. At the same time, housing went 50 cents on the dollar. If you wanted to get into real estate, where are you going to pull that money from? If all the money you have saved is in the market,
right?
How are you going to get in the real estate game at the best time to buy? Because the houses are going at 50 cents on the dollar. Commercial real estate is going 50 cents on the dollar. Can't. Because all your money's tied up. Or you can, but you're going to lock in your losses over here, right? So that's where savers get in trouble is they have all their money locked up. It comes down to cash flow. Right? I said this to you earlier. What's the biggest differential of creating wealth versus not in times of opportunity is access to cash. Right? So a wealth creator understands the importance of liquidity and using other people's money. All right, there's multiple ways to do this, but I'm just going to give you one example. Do you believe banks are in the business of making money? Yes. Right? How well they are at doing it is arguable depending on how politically you want to get into it, but we're not going to get into that at all. So I'm just going to, are you familiar with how banks make money? I guess interest on loans. You're right. You're exactly right. So just to outline that, banks are a perfect example of wealth creators because banks use what's called collateral capacity to use other people's money. All right? What I mean by that is they don't invest their money in high risk stuff, right? Each bank's different, but they're not going out and trying to time the market with individual stocks. Right. If they are, I'm guessing they'd get in trouble by their board and Federal Reserve and stuff like that. So they invest their money in very conservative ways that grows over time. But their compounding curve is so extreme because these banks are in business for hundreds and 150 years. Can you imagine having a 150-year-long compounding curve? You and I only have about a 40, 50-year one because of when we start saving and things like that, right? So they have a bunch of money, all right? If I go to the bank and I deposit $10,000 into a checking account, what interest do you think they pay me? Pay you? Yeah, what interest do you think I'll get on my checking account or my savings account from a bank? Somewhere close to inflation. Very little. Very little. 3% would be pretty high. If I got 3, that'd be great. But my last statement was probably like 0.01. But hey, let's just say I go to the nicest bank ever and they pay me 3%. Okay. Or I use an online bank that are somewhat aggressive with less liquidity. Right. If the next day you go and you borrow $10,000 to go make an upgrade to your business, CrossFit Great North, how much do you think what interest do you think they're going to charge you? Substantially more. Just give me a number. There's nothing wrong. I'm just curious. I'll use the example. 6%. So they paid me 3, a really nice bank, and they charged you 6. What's their rate of return on this transaction? 3%. It seems like it's 3. 6 minus 3. Yeah, if you don't factor in the compound. Right. So there's 2 parts to that. One, they didn't use their money. They used my money. All right. So I'm going to change colors. Hopefully this shows up on the board. All right. Yeah. So this whole time, they left their money on the compounding curve because they understand the importance of compounding. Right. They paid me, in this hypothetical example, $300. They took my money and they gave it back to you. They don't give you their money, they give you my money. Banks are only required to have like 10% of all their debt in reserve. They use other people's money to make more money. That's beautiful. All right? So, and they charged you $600. So they paid me 3 and they made 6. So is that 3% or is it 300%? Rate of return on that one transaction plus their millions of billions of dollars gets to continuously grow on the compounding curve. And a bank that's really good at what they do this, they can do this up to 8 times with my money alone.
Wow.
So if you transition this to your own personal life, imagine having money that you could continuously, so we'll use the circle again, that instead of spending it once, like the saver uses their money one time and then it's gone. It's off the compounding curve. Imagine having the ability to take your money, buy a business or a rental property, pay yourself back, and your money stays in the compounding curve. And you keep doing this multiple times, and over your life, rather than buying a business one time, you've used the same money to buy 8 businesses, and now you have 8 streams of income, plus your money stays in the compounding curve.
Seems better.
So that's what we call creating wealth. That's wealth creation. All right. So there's multiple ways to do it, and we're not going to get in extreme detail right now. But the philosophy behind it is, from an offensive standpoint, you have to decide for yourself. There's no wrong answer. Do you want to be a spender or a saver or a wealth creator?
I would like to be a wealth creator.
All right. So if you're entrepreneurial, that's usually what you pick. And I have a lot of people who just want us to put them out. Well, they want their money out of sight, out of mind, and they want to be savers, and that's okay.
Sure.
Nothing wrong with that. If you're a spender, it's probably we're having to work together because there's not a whole lot I can do for you. But we can try. I can try to help you get better. But does that analogy help?
Yeah, 100%.
Any questions on that before I start erasing everything?
No, that's lovely.
All right. So there's how much time we got? All right. So I have time for one more, and then we're going to have to wrap this up. Cool. All right. So this is definitely a lot more detailed than I was expecting to be getting today, but that's okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to black because I have a funny thing. It's the easiest color to see, unless you notice blue being better. All right. So can you see me?
Yeah.
All right.
You're good.
So this is the last thing I'm going to draw. So for anyone who's still with us, I hope this has been helpful. Kind of been all over the place, but hopefully these points are helpful for you to consider and think about. So we're going to use 3 triplets, not 3 triplets. 1 set of triplets. They're all retiring the exact same day. All right? Their names are Larry, Mo, and Curly. I use these names because they're easy to remember, right? So Larry, Mo, and Curly. I'm not going to use specific products. I'm just going to use outlines of how taxes work, right? So this is going back to our retirement mountain.
Yeah.
So the conversation I just had with spender versus saver versus wealth creator is a question of how do you want to get up the mountain,
right?
Right. Now we're talking about how do you want to get down. This is applicable to everyone, even if you want to be a saver or a wealth creator. Unfortunately, the conversation isn't had by many. Okay. So Larry. And we're just going to say that all 3 of these guys are pulling $80,000 from their account per year. And they're all married, and their wives are doing the same. We're just going to look at them individually, okay? So Larry, and keep in mind, all state taxes are different, so I'm not trying to get into the tax debate here, just philosophy, all right? So I got to say that for the one person who gets mad at me for not being perfectly accurate.
Sure.
Larry puts all of his money in tax-deferred accounts. All right, he walks into DigiKey or he walks into his job, and automatically they sign him up for 3% 401k contribution, the 3% match. All of that goes tax deferred. All right, or he's the farmer who his CPA told him to have a SEP IRA so he can write a bunch of stuff off. Right, a lot of us are trying to save money in taxes this year without realizing the tax ramifications in the future. Sure. I'm not saying either is right or wrong. I'm not saying I'm smarter than CPAs. I'm saying we're just doing different things. Right. Some of us are on the same page, some of us aren't, and that's okay, right? No product or strategy is right or wrong until compared to its alternative for our situation. Context. Okay? Context is great. So all of his savings up the mountain are tax-deferred in tax-deferred accounts. Down the mountain, so which means down the mountain, all of his wealth is subject to income taxes, right? Mm-hmm. So in this example, if Larry pulls $80,000. Put a box on that. He pulls $80,000. This is all gross income. Okay, gross because it's before tax. In Minnesota, if he's pulling 80, his wife's pulling 80, they're going to be around a 30%-ish effective income tax. I'm not perfect on that. Maybe it's a little bit different, but it makes the math easier. Okay, so he's going to pay about 30% tax, which is equal to $24,000. Do we agree? So his net income is equal to $56,000 of net income. Do we agree? All right, plus you get Social Security, right? This is where things get weird. Our government, in all their infinite wisdom, say, Larry, you are rich beyond your wildest dreams. You and your wife have more than $44,000 of taxable income, so we are actually going to tax up to 85% of your Social Security again. You don't need all that money.
Really?
So your facial expression tells me you didn't know that.
Didn't know that.
Didn't know that.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, so do you believe do you believe you and your wife combined $44,000 of taxable income is a lot of money?
Not with what we would probably want to be doing with our retirement, no.
Well, the government does. If you are married and you have over $44,000 of taxable income combined, they will tax up to 85% of your Social Security again because you paid taxes on the way in.
Right.
Okay? Plus, are you aware of how Medicare costs are determined?
Negative.
Taxable income.
Ish. They get you coming and going.
All right? So this is on our current taxes. Now imagine our political climate. I don't want to get into politics, but just imagine certain people get in control and they realize we need to decrease our debt. We can't just keep stacking up debt to China, and we're going to need to get some of this money back. What if they decide to change this to 50% tax rate? Now you're paying $40,000 in taxes. Your net income is now $40,000 per year. Net, you still have to pay up to 85% on your Social Security, and your Medicare is still based off taxable income.
Beautiful.
But you don't find that out until the year before you want to retire.
Right.
Do you think that might make some issues for you?
Yeah, I think it would.
Do you think decreasing your income by that much and having no control over what happens would be a little frustrating?
I would be disgruntled.
A little disgruntled, right? All right, so we'll erase the hypothetical, but it's the thing we have to understand is we have no control over these numbers outside of who we vote for. Because once they get into office, they pick the taxes, not us, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on Larry?
Nope.
All right, so this is standard traditional financial planning. This is, if you have a traditional 401k, this is the bucket you're in, all right? Mo does things differently, and this would be kind of you right now, all right? Mo invests all of his money in sometimes taxed buckets. I don't say buckets. Assets. All right, so this would be like businesses and individual stocks, mutual funds, things like that. So he is subject to capital gains tax. Are you familiar with capital gains tax?
Not to the point where I would say anything else other than I've heard of it.
Okay,
we'll
so another disclaimer: I'm not a CPA. I'm not a tax planner. I don't do people's taxes. I'm not giving tax advice. I have to say that because I'm not licensed in it. I don't want anyone to get upset.
Right.
I'm just showing you what can happen with where you put your money. Okay. Mo invests all of it. So capital gains tax. Let's say you buy your business for $1 million, you sell it for $2 million. $1 million you put in, you get back tax free. From my understanding of the tax code, tax free. The $1 million of growth, you pay capital gains tax on. There's 3 capital gains tax rates: 0%, 15%, 20%. 0, you have to have little to no money. 20, you have to be pretty wealthy, so you probably be in the 15% range. All right, but this is why people get upset, because this is why they say Warren Buffett pays a lower tax rate than a secretary, because a secretary is an employee with income taxes. He owns things.
Right.
He doesn't work for them. Right. So he's paying 20%. His secretary is probably paying 40. His 20% is still more because it's a much larger number, right? That's where people get confused. And there's a lot of different ways you can pay it. It can be first in, first out, last in, first out, things like that. We're just going to say split in half. All right. So let's say 40,000 of your income is capital. So it's tax free, and 40,000 is gains. at 15%, which is equal to $6,000. Correct me if my math is wrong, please. Which gets us to a net of $74,000 net income. You agree?
Yeah.
All right. Plus, he gets the Social Security. However, the government, in all their infinite wisdom, says if you have less than $44,000 of taxable income, but more than $34,000 of taxable income, we'll only tax up to 50% of your Social Security again. It's only 50. It's a lot better than 85. Man. So, plus, we already talked about Medicare, but his Medicare costs are going to be lower than Larry's.
Right.
All right. So to put this in, I'm not going to get into specific products, but we'll just use one example.
Right.
Larry and Mo could have invested in the exact same mutual fund, his through his 401k, his through a brokerage account, exact same mutual fund. Let's say a Fidelity or something like that. And they could have had this much of a different retirement. Larry 56, Mo 74. Larry's up to 85% double tax, Mo up to 50%. To be clear, I'm not saying 50% of your Social Security gone. I'm saying 50% of it subject to taxes. Right. And it's subject to taxes at your highest marginal rate. Now your effective income, your effective tax rate, and your highest marginal rate. They just stack it on top, right? And then Medicare, right? So far, who would you rather be, Larry or Mo?
Mo, I think, has a better deal so far.
And it's all about where they put their money on the way up the mountain, affecting them on the way down.
Yep.
So can we see why it's important to understand where we're putting our wealth on the way up? It affects how we use it later, right?
For sure.
So Curly puts all of his money in after tax accounts. So in retirement, no tax, right? We're not going to get into products. We're talking about philosophy. So if Curly pulls $80,000 from his account, how much tax does he pay?
Looks like none.
0. So it's all net. He gets to keep 100% of his Social Security, and he has the lowest Medicare costs. Again, could have invested in the exact same things, hypothetically speaking.
Huh.
What questions or thoughts do you have on that?
It's important to make good decisions. It's important to have the right guy helping you make those good decisions.
So it all comes back to the mountain. What is more important? How your rate of return on the way up or your rate of distribution on the way down? And from what you told me earlier, you said rate of distribution. Do you still agree?
I do.
All right. So we are running low on time. I literally have to go in like 5 minutes. So it's amazing how long we talk, which I'm not complaining about because I love the conversation. Any other things you want to ask me or talk about in the last 5 minutes that'll hopefully be valuable for you and or our audience?
You know, I think we've covered a lot of ground, and I think we've given myself and a lot of other people a lot to chew on and some really good insight into how it works working with you and thinking about your money in the long term and in terms of what happens on the way back down the mountain. That's
also all comes back to the circle, right?
Yeah.
How much of your pie do you want to give up?
Right.
Now can you see the 30 to 40% thing?
100%.
Plus the Social Security taxes, plus the Medicare costs.
It's a pretty neat little picture you have there, Drew.
Thanks. I'm an artiste in my dreams, not in reality. So if you have anything else to ask or to say, just think about it for a second. I just want to add, I'm not perfect at everything. I'm not a tax accountant. I'm not a CPA. If anything I said today seems wrong and you want to correct me, please do. I will not be offended by it. I actually appreciate learning new things. And actually, I love having a conversation about money, not math, right? I actually like math too, but it's different. They work differently. So please don't hesitate to reach out and just like correct me or ask questions. I strongly encourage that. The last thing, and this goes for you too, the last thing I ever want for anyone who walks through my door is to walk out saying, what the heck did he just say? Right? I know I'm not always clear as I want to be. So just like ask blunt questions, and I'm okay with it. So I just had to get that disclaimer out there. Anything else that you want to cover or say or before we wrap this up?
I think we're good, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
It's been great.
No, I really appreciate you reaching out. I had when you said you want to interview me, I was like, wonder what that looks like. Usually I'm the one asking people questions. So I appreciate it. And for anyone who's curious, I don't always wear shorts, but it's golf day. So I had to enjoy myself. And I didn't actually know I'd be standing up in front of a camera today, but I'm okay with it. So it's like 90 degrees outside. So
Yes.
I was not about to wear pants. And we're just happy I'm not wearing boxers.
Right.
I do a lot of Zoom things now. So, well, no, I appreciate it, Tate. We'll let everyone go. I will look forward to kind of seeing how this turned out. So thank you very much. Like I said at the beginning, if you have any interest in learning more about physical, mental, or emotional health, this guy's the guy to talk to. So recommend reaching out to him.